Hello, everyone. Welcome to English for You. I'm Mike.
I'm Chickling.
And a monster is still calling. It's the third day, and we've had this monster calls story. We've been reading the story for the last 2 days. Today, we're actually finished the story, but we're going to be reading a little bit more about, well, the writers, the people who invented the story and, where the story came from and stuff like that. So it should be very, very interesting. I think we enjoyed the story. It was kind of about dreams. It was about loss. It was about fears and stuff like that. Things that we all experience at different times in our life. Do you remember a story from when you were a kid that you still love or you still think about? Maybe you still even have the book.
Don't have one.
You don't really think of one?
Well, I'm trying to think.
My favorite story from when I was a kid, and I do still read it once in a while, once every couple of years. And once I tell you the title, you'll know why I read it or when I read it. It's called Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. And when you've had one of those terrible, horrible, no good, very bad days, where you spilled coffee on yourself and your boss yelled at you and they forgot your food at the restaurant and, no taxi would pick you up. And at the end of a day like that, you can go home and read this book.
So
I think they made it into a not very good movie a while ago.
But does reading that really help with your bad day?
Yeah, because this kid in the book has a really terrible day.
So you're like,
many more bad things happen to him. So at the end of the book, you're like, hey, at least I'm not Alexander. And at the end, he kind of thinks, my day's so bad, I'm going to move to Australia. That's his answer, But then at the end of the book, he kind of goes, well, I think even people in Australia have bad days once in a while. So, it's a good book, and it's one that stuck with me. I think it's a classic. So maybe this is one of those books for another group of people. A Monster Calls. Let's find out more about it by reading today's article.
Reading. A Monster Calls. A Monster Calls was written by Patrick Ness, but the original idea came from Siobhan Dowd. She sadly passed away of cancer, like Connor's mother, while she was still planning the book. Ness wrote Connor's story based on the notes Dowd left behind. Each of the 3 stories the monster tells Connor has a moral about humankind. The story about the prince teaches Connor how people often deceive themselves. The prince ends up believing his own lie about who killed his beloved. In the second story, the priest showed that his beliefs were empty because he let them go so quickly. The third story parallels Connor's own difficulty at school and teaches him that having people pay attention to him is not always good. Connor's recurring nightmares about his mother falling happen because he knows that she is dying. The pain of losing her is drawn out because her illness lasts a long time. By the end of the book, he has learned how to let go.
All right, so the article for today begins by telling us, a little bit of the basic stuff about this book. A Monster Calls was written by Patrick Ness, but the original idea came from Siobhan Dowd. Oh, interesting. So it's actually the product of 2 people's imaginations. It was written by one guy, but he got the original idea for the book from a lady, Siobhan Dowd. So it was kind of a team job, a team effort.
OK， 所以这本书很特别哦，它其实是有可以说是2个作者啦。所以 A Monster Calls 这个是由 Patrick Ness 写作的，不过最原始的想法是来自于 Siobhan Dowd。
All right, and then, wow, we also learned something kind of sad that shows you it sort of had to be a team effort. One person couldn't do it because, as we learn, that's Siobhan Dowd, the lady with the original idea, she sadly passed away of cancer. Oh, no. Like Connor's mother, remember in the story, while she was still planning the book. So Siobhan Dowd couldn't finish the book because, unfortunately, she passed away. That means she died. She died of cancer. So I guess Patrick Ness maybe was a friend of hers or just thought it was a great story, so he's like, I will take over. I will make sure people get to read this book. So that was another way of paying tribute, of showing respect to Siobhan Dowd, because unfortunately, she died or passed away of cancer. Cancer is, of course, a deadly disease. It's a deadly illness. People get cancer for all sorts of different reasons. Basically, cancer is a bunch of cells in your body that are growing that you don't want to grow, and they can cause all sorts of health problems. People can survive or live through cancer, but it still does kill a whole lot of people all around the world every year. So it's one of those things, along with heart disease, that people need to be very careful about and be healthy, eat well, do all that stuff, and hopefully you will avoid getting cancer. For example, we could say the greatest drummer in the history of rock and roll, Neil Peart, died of brain cancer in 2020. He did. It was very sad.
Yeah, I think my nanny died of cancer too.
Yeah,
I think it was like bladder cancer. I don't
gets
remember.
people. Yeah, it can kind of affect lots of different parts of your body, and some places it's more dangerous, I think, than others, right?
Especially brain, like
that can be pretty bad.
所以这边是 cancer 就是癌症，所以呢，你可以说 cancer kills thousands of people every year.
Millions.
Millions.
I would say. Maybe thousands in Taiwan.
Oh my gosh.
Probably thousands in Taiwan.
Yeah.
Millions around the world.
Around the world, yes.
But of course, there are 7 billion people in the world. So we should, keep those numbers in perspective. But yes, it is a very dangerous disease. Absolutely. All right, back to the article. It says, Ness wrote Connor's story based on the notes Dowd left behind. So he really did basically pick up from where Siobhan Dowd left it when she got sick, and he basically used her ideas, even using her notes to finish the story. What a lovely thing. If something is based on something, that basically means we take the basic idea, we take the sort of skeleton or the main idea of something, and then we build on it, we change it, we add things to it. But if you really break it down to the simplest parts, to the most basic parts, that is what we are talking about. That is what it is based on. Often when we have movies, right? Someone will write a story, a book, and then someone will say, that's a great book. I'm going to change a few things and turn it into an action movie. So it was based on that book, but something was changed. They did add things to it, but the original idea is what it was based on.
OK， 所以呢，我们这边知道说呢，哇，很难过，在计划这本书的同时呢，这一个 Siobhan 他就死于癌症，就像 Connor 的妈妈一样。那老师也有提到 be based on 就是根据，只是因为说课文中关系代名词 be 动词它被省略，是让文句看起来更简单，所以其实原句是 Ness wrote Connor's story that was based on the notes Dowd blah blah blah. 所以其实 that was 有省略掉了。
Yeah, exactly. And when she died, well, other things were still here in the world. She wasn't. She had died, sadly. But she left behind her notes. We could also say she probably left behind family, friends. A lot of the things that were part of her life, well, now that she's not alive, those things, though, they're still here. So she left those behind.
那这边有出现 leave something behind 就是遗留下来的东西，所以呢 Ness 就根据 Dowd 留下来的笔记呢，就把 Connor 的故事给写出来了。 I think that's a very sweet deed of Ness.
Absolutely, a very nice thing for him to do. And also he probably thought it was a really good story and people need to hear it. And I can also, show love and tribute, pay tribute to my friend by doing it. Now, what is the basic idea of the story, the basic idea that Siobhan Dowd came up with? Each of the 3 stories, the monster tells Connor has a moral about humankind. So it's kind of a fairy tale. There's sort of some basic lessons about life or morals that the story is trying to teach people, right? When we're kids, we watch stories or movies or cartoons, and often hiding in the story there's a moral. Be kind to your friends. Don't bully people. Don't steal. Always tell the truth and never lie. This is the kind of thing when we talk about a moral. It's kind of a basic life lesson that is often hidden, or a story will build around it, but that's the sort of lesson, especially for young people, that we're trying to get them to understand. And after you read a fairy tale or something, someone might ask you a question like this: what do you think the moral of the story is? What is the basic lesson that they're trying to teach us?
所以这边的 moral 它指的是寓意，所以如果我们有时候在后面加一个 s， 让它变成整个是复数，通常会只是道德规范的意思。所以你可以说 That man has absolutely no morals， 就是那个人完全没有道德哦。或者这个字呢 moral 你也可以指一个人有道德的，比如说 I know it's my moral obligation to tell the police what I know， 就是我觉得我还是要跟警察说我知道什么，来，我这样才是有道德的。
All right, so of course these morals were about people, about life and the people that you will meet in your life, your family, your friends, people you like, people you don't like, and all of those people, if we take them all together, all around the world. So we're basically talking, another word we might use for this is man or humanity or something like, for example, humankind has to start taking serious action to stop climate change, or humankind won't have a planet, and then humankind will disappear, probably.
Yeah. Hopefully we can move to Mars.
Humankind might move to Mars, but we'd need a lot of rocket ships to get all of humankind to Mars.
所以呢 humankind 就是人类，老师刚刚提到咯，它就是一个 a group, like a group， 所以是一个整体的存在，它是不可数。所以你没有发现刚刚 Mike 老师的句子里面它是当不可数使用。那老师也有提到 humanity 这个字呢是统称人类，不过其实如果真的要比较的话，通常是指人性，相对比较抽象一点。那其实这个字呢也跟另外一个字很有关，就是 human。那这个呢就指的比较像是人类个体，可能是生物学上的人类，所以我们可以说 human body, human life,Human pride 这些都可以使用。那其实这个字呢再加上一个 e 就会变成 humane， 就会变成是善良的或人道的意思，所以它其实意思很多哦。那如果你要变成不人道的，我们在前面加一个 in 变成 inhumane， 其实就是有不一样的意思。
All right, so let's look at some of the morals that both Siobhan Dowd and Patrick Ness are trying to get across in their story. It says the story about the prince, remember that was the first one, the story about the prince teaches Connor how people often deceive themselves. Oh, that's true, yeah. You might get in trouble for lying to other people or deceiving other people, but you might not get in trouble for deceiving yourself, but it might also still lead to trouble for you because you're tricking yourself, you're lying to yourself, you're telling yourself things that aren't true, and you're believing them. And of course, that can lead to all sorts of mistakes and bad actions.
OK， 所以 deceive 这边指的是欺骗、蒙骗。所以第一个故事呢，他是要告诉说，其实王子呢，这个人他一直在欺骗自己。他想要告诉大家说，人们很常欺骗自己。I don't understand. Did the prince lie to himself?
Well, I guess he ends up believing his own lie about who killed his beloved. He killed his beloved, but after telling everyone, it was the witch, it was the witch, it was the witch, he started to believe his own lie. And sometimes if we tell a lie enough, we do start to believe it.
Oh yeah， 所以这边出现的这个 end up doing something 其实指的是最后，所以其实王子最后是强迫自己相信继母就是杀了自己挚爱的凶手。
And then we move on. In the second story, the priest showed that his beliefs were empty because he let them go so quickly. The priest who didn't want to help the healer when he didn't need any help from the healer, suddenly he wanted to give up all his beliefs if the healer would only help to keep his daughters healthy and safe. He was willing to throw away those beliefs for almost anything at almost any time. So I guess he didn't really believe those things that much then, did he? That's what we mean here by empty. When we talk about something being empty, of course, you might think of a glass with nothing in it, right? That glass is empty. There's nothing inside. But if we talk about beliefs or something like that, we're basically saying it doesn't work. There's nothing there. Just like there's nothing in your glass. If your beliefs are empty, you might say, oh, I believe I should always tell the truth. But then you end up lying all the time. Well, your belief in telling the truth is pretty empty. You really don't believe that at all, do you? You're just kind of saying it, but there's nothing real there. For example, voters will see through the politicians' empty words. This guy has been saying, I will continue to do good things for the working people of the city. He's been saying that for 10 years, and all he does is give money to his rich friends. Those are empty words.
Yeah, 所以这个 empty 呢，指的是空洞的，没有实际效果。那像老师刚刚说 empty words，指的就是这些空洞的字。所以有时候如果我们说空头支票，英文也可以说 empty promises。所以比如说 I left my former agency since I was so tired of the manager's empty promises。所以我们给的一些不确实的承诺，这些都可以用这个字哦。那 empty you can also use it as a verb， 它指的就是清空，所以你可以说 Max emptied his glass and asked for a refill， 就是他把他的东西喝完了，然后再加一杯的意思。所以呢，在第二个故事中呢，牧师告诫了读者，他的信仰有多么的空虚，多么的脆弱，到很轻易就能放掉了。
And then the third story the monster told. The third story parallels Connor's own difficulty at school and teaches him that having people pay attention to him is not always good. Apparently, this parallels Connor's difficulty at school. Well, you guys know when something is difficult, it's hard, right? When you have a difficulty, you're dealing with something in your life that is difficult, all right? We all have different types of difficulties at different times of the day, but like many things in life, you still have to deal with it. We all have difficulties. For example, I'm having some difficulty with this math problem. Could you help me?
所以呢，这边出现 parallel， 它指的是平行，所以在这边指的是与什么东西相似。所以呢，接下来这个单字是 difficulty， 它是来自于 difficult， 所以它是困难哦。所以我们可以说 to have great difficulty doing something. The kids are having great difficulty learning to read and write. 就是这一些小朋友呢，他们觉得要学习读跟写是很困难的。所以第三个故事跟 Connor 自身在学校的困难是很相似的，就是这个故事要告诫他，被注意并不是永远都是好事哦。
All right, so then we learn Connor's recurring nightmares about his mother falling, I should say, happen because he knows that she is dying. Remember, this is Connor's dream. So his recurring nightmares about his mother falling happen because he knows that she is dying. Yeah, she's slipping out of his fingers in the dream because the disease, cancer, is taking her away or making her slip away from him in real life. This is recurring. When something's recurring, it's happening again, maybe several times, but certainly it happens again and again and again. If there's a recurring noise in your bedroom at night, it might kind of stop you from sleeping, right? What is that tap, tap, tap sound? It keeps happening. Oh, I think the water is dripping in the bathroom. But recurring noises, they don't happen just once. They happen again and again and again. Yeah, those might bother you if you're trying to sleep.
好，所以呢，这个 recurring 指的是反复出现的，所以 Connor 其实反复出现这个噩梦，是因为他知道妈妈即将离世了。所以呢，我们有看到这个死亡的用法，我们来看一下，比较一下不同的差别。我们有 die、dead 跟 dying， 还有 death 的比较。那我们先看一下 die 这一个字，它的三态是 died， 它都是动词，就是由生到死的这个瞬间动作。那如果是 dead， 它是形容词，指的是死亡的。那如果是 dying， 它是个现在分词哦，它就是死亡的意思，或者是即将死掉的，当形容词的时候。那如果是 death， 它就是名词，指的就是死亡这件事情。那我们来造几个句子。所以我们在文章中就有看到 after the king died 代表呢国王死掉这件事情，这个瞬间他死掉了，或者是死于什么原因呢？ To die of something. The king died of lung cancer. 那如果要表示某个人已经过世很久了一段时间，那我们就要用形容词哦，不可以用 die， 不然会变成一直死亡。所以你要说 Michael Jackson has been dead for over 10 years. Michael Jackson 呢已经过世超过10年了。那如果你要指的是死者的统称，那就是 the dead。 那如果是 dying 的部分，我们刚刚说是垂死的，快死掉的，对吧？所以这边呢我们说 because Connor knows that his mom is dying， 他知道他妈妈要过世了，所以是快要过世的意思。那濒死之人呢也可以说 the dying。 或者是 if you're dying to do something, that means you really want to do something. 比如说 the fans are dying to find out if the superstar has a girlfriend. 粉丝极度想要知道这个超级巨星有没有女朋友。那么我们刚刚说 death is used as a noun. It's an uncountable noun. 它不可数哦。所以比如说 the sudden death of the businessman made everyone very shocked. 就是那个商人呢突然死掉了，让大家非常的震惊。
Okay. And then it also says again about Connor and his dream and what it all means. The pain of losing her is drawn out because her illness lasts a long time. Well, that is one of the things. Remember, his mother has cancer, and cancer is one of those diseases that takes a long time, generally, for people to get sick and die from, maybe a few months or years, possibly. It's not something that happens quickly, so it will be very drawn out. Something that kind of takes more time than you would expect, or more time than normal, or like, oh, I hope this isn't a drawn-out conversation, because I gotta go. So if something, kind of feels like it's taking a bit longer than you'd like, doing that. So his pain, right? It's sad to lose someone you love in your life. That's sad, of course. But when that person is dying very, very slowly, that's kind of drawn out, right? It's kind of making this difficult situation even harder just because it lasts such a long time. An illness, it's like a sickness. It could be something not so important or not so serious like the flu, or it could be something very serious like cancer. As a baby, Wendy suffered through several years of illness, but she's fine now.
Okay, so illness 就是疾病或患病的意思。那我们这个字把 ness 拿掉，变成形容词，就是生病的。所以 be ill with 就是患有什么。He was ill with the flu, so he took a week off. 因为他生病了，所以他就请假1个礼拜。所以 Connor 呢，他渐渐失去母亲的痛苦很长，因为他妈妈已经生病很久了。
All right, and then as we finish the article, it says, by the end of the book, he has learned how to let go. So he's kind of listened to some of these lessons and the stories from the monster, and now so I guess he feels a little bit more peaceful, a little bit more comfortable with letting his mother go, or miss her greatly, but maybe, he's handling it, he's dealing with it a little bit better than he would have before.
It could be very hard to let go of things sometimes.
Definitely, absolutely. Especially when you're not ready to and it feels way too soon or something like that. Especially when a young person, loses their parent. Yeah, it's very hard to let go.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that's about all the time we have. We do have our chat question, though, to look at before we complete things for today. So let's do that right after this quick break.
For you chat.
All right, so our chat question is kind of an interesting one. Now that you've finished the article or finished the story, do you have a different idea of why the monster appeared to Connor?
Well, I kind of feel like the monster never existed.
It was his imagination?
Yeah, or no, it's actually Connor himself.
Was Connor himself?
I think it's his fear.
Okay.
So he is like telling himself all this and trying to get himself out of all this mess. I don't know. I just kind of feel like that. What do you think?
Interesting. Well, I mean, it's kind of funny because often we think of monsters coming into our lives and causing all sorts of problems, right? It sounds like this monster, kind of like what we talked about earlier with a good witch. Not all witches are bad. Not all monsters are bad. It sounds like this monster was sent along to kind of help him deal with some of the very serious things that he was having to face. It's, not sort of normal for young kids, especially, to deal with things like that. So if it's a monster or your family or a wise uncle or a close friend who can help you get through difficult situations in your life, then you're a very lucky person. Yeah. And you should thank all the kind monsters and other things in your life. Because there's all sorts of difficult stuff we have to deal with, and any help that we can get is always good. Thanks for joining us, guys. That's all the time we have for today. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other, too. We'll see you back here soon with more great articles. Until then, I'm Mike.
I'm Chi-Kling.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, and find your monsters.
Vocabulary Review.
Cancer. Jamie's cancer hasn't spread, so there's still time for the doctors to operate on it. Moral. The moral of this famous story is to always tell the truth. Humankind. One thing that separates humankind from animals is our use of language. Empty. Kyle said he'd bring me a birthday gift, but I have a feeling it's an empty promise. Difficulty. After his accident, Aaron walked with great difficulty and needed to use a stick. Illness. Andy was sick for a long time, and he couldn't work because of his illness.
字汇小补帖
Deceive. Parallel. Recurring.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net